Hello my friends and welcome back to a new reading wrap-up video. In the month of March I have read a total of 5 books and almost everything was represented in terms of rating. I gave 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars and 2 stars, so it was very diverse and I cannot wait to show you and I hope you enjoy. The first book that I read this month was The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I had really high expectations for this book. The story just sounded amazing on the back here. The cover looked amazing. And that was what had initially drawn me to the book, what had made me purchase it at the bookstore. The story was almost too good to be true. And after reading it, I can say, yes, it was too good to be true. The author could not deliver up to my expectations. So unfortunately, it was a disappointment, but let me tell you about this story. In this book, we are in London in both the 18th century as well as in present day. Our main character in present day London is Caroline, who is American, who's just there on vacation. She's had marriage troubles and just needs to clear her head and find out what she really wants to do in life now. And she's also a history nerd. She loves history, and somehow on this trip she stumbles upon evidence that leads her to the so-called apothecary murders, which are a mystery because they were never solved. These are murders that took place in the 18th century. So this is where the second timeline comes into play. In the 18th century, we are following Nella, who is the owner of an apothecary, and it's a special kind of apothecary because it doesn't just give out cures for disease, but also poisons, but only to women who have oppressive men in their lives. So these women get these poisons and essentially kill their oppressors. And yeah, through the story, we learn what happened to the apothecary, how her story ended, and all that through Caroline in present day, who is investigating these mysteries and in the end solves them. And yeah, what can I say? So when I heard about the story, it had really everything I love. I love strong women, I love some history, I love mysteries, and in this case, the apothecary murders, poison murders sounded extremely interesting to me. I was hoping to read about a lot of different women and their stories that led them to use these poisons and how their lives unfolded afterward. I did get 2 examples in this book of women that had used the poison, but I was hoping to get a little more details about these women's stories. However, the 2 that I read were interesting, and I can say that in general, the story that took place in the 18th century here, that I liked it a lot. I love Nella, the apothecary owner, and her little aide, who is a little girl who believes in magic, and we have some magic realism in this book. And yeah, she was just lovely. Like there's, for example, one scene where she thinks she's haunted by a ghost and she gets her period and she thinks that her period is the ghost that's haunting her. So I had to smile at that. It was very cute. My problem with this book was really the present day story. And first of all, Caroline, I don't know what to say, but the investigation that she did to solve these murders was just way too easy. I mean, it didn't take no effort at all. These murders were literally unsolved for over 200 years. And here comes this tourist and in the course of 4 days solves these murders, no problem. She never stumbles across a problem or is stuck anywhere. No, it's really easy. Like for example, in the beginning, she is doing a mudlarkin tour, which apparently is something in London where you go to the river, the Thames, and you search the riverbank for old artifacts. And this is where she goes, and she's not really into it, and she thinks, I'll only stay for 10 minutes. And of course, in those 10 minutes, right away, she finds this mysterious vial, and then, you know, it continues like that. It's just she stumbles upon clue. And there were a couple of things here that didn't seem realistic to me, like she stumbles upon a historic site, which is literally in the middle of London next to like very modern buildings, and the author wants to tell us that nobody else ever found this place except for our tourists. So I don't know, some aspects were hard to believe. I don't know if I explained it well, but that was my main problem here, and unfortunately that kind of destroyed the story for me. I wish we had just stick with the 18th century and maybe put some more details in there, talked about some more women. I think then the book would have really been amazing, but present day kind of, I don't want to say ruined it, because I still enjoyed aspects of it, but yeah, made it so that I only give this book 2.5 out of 5 stars, and I expected this to be an easy 4 stars. So that was The Apothecary, The Lost Apothecary. The next book, however, was a great surprise. I loved it so much. It's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. Going into the story, I had no idea that this was the first book in the series of 3, so it's a trilogy. And I can't wait now to read the next 2 books. I'll definitely do it. But this one was a great start into the series. Before I read, I also found out that Stieg Larsson, the author, is a thriller mystery writer from Sweden. So this book is a thriller mystery. And he died right before this series was published. So the series was published posthumously. It was a big hit. And yeah, I'm sure most of you know this story. They made 3 movies out of them. And yeah, just an overall success. And somehow that made me sad, thinking that the author never saw the success of his books, never saw how many people he fascinated with his stories. And yeah, that made me a little sad. But in this book, we follow the story of our 2 main characters, who are Michael Blomquist and Lisbeth Salander, and who couldn't be more different. Michael Blomquist is a financial journalist, and he has just lost a court case against one very prominent person in the finance industry, because he has accused him of having committed financial crimes, and he didn't have enough evidence. So this guy had dragged him into court, accused him of libel, and won. So for Michael Blomquist, he's at the bottom of his career as a journalist. Libel is the worst thing that can happen to you, and is, yeah, not in a great spot. Lisbeth Salander, on the other hand, is a very bright young woman, but very edgy. I mean, she's very interesting. She's the girl with the dragon tattoo. She's very antisocial, but she's smart. She's a hacker. She works for a security company and investigates people using methods that are not really legal. But yeah, she is just, I loved reading her story. I mean, she's so tough, and just if there's a problem, Lisbeth will solve it, but not in the way that you expect her to solve it. So I can't wait to read more about her. But the main story here is that at some point, Michael Blomquist gets this job offer from one of Sweden's wealthiest families, in particular from Henrik Wanger, who wants him to investigate the disappearance of his niece 40 years ago, because he has reason to believe that one of his family members is responsible. And so Michael takes the job and investigates this crime, and also Lisbeth Salander at some point crosses paths with him, and she helps him investigate. So to me, this book was amazing. I mean, I loved the characters. As I said, Lisbeth Salander was just the best. I want to read more about her. But Michael Blomquist's story was also interesting. I loved reading about the investigation. It was very dynamic, very compelling, and yeah, just overall stuff came up that I didn't expect. This family had tons of secrets. We have a lot of suspects. We literally have family members who were Nazis, who were part of Nazis. We have some religion thrown into there, that it might be related to religion. It has everything, and I did not guess who the murder was in the end. But it was very well made, this whole mystery and solving part. I do want to say that some of the murders were very gruesome, and if you have a problem with it, be prepared, because I got goosebumps reading some of these parts, and yeah, it was tough, but overall I just loved the book. My only negative is that, so we have the story of Herod's disappearance that Michael investigates with Lisbeth, but also we still have this backstory going on that's related to the financial crimes he was investigating. And after the mystery is solved, the story of these financial crimes continues, and we still follow that. And that part was not as interesting to me. So when the book ended, to me, the high point had really already happened, and it was already slowing down. Also, I didn't like how the relationship of Michael and Lisbeth ended at this book, at what point they stood, but I do see that it's the first book in a series, so I understand, and I see that it's a setup for the next 2 books. So what can I tell you? You will probably see the next two soon here because I want to read them as soon as possible. I want to know what happens to Lisbeth and Michael. But for now, I give this one 4 out of 5 stars, and in the end I'll tell you how I view the entire series, because it's kind of tough to judge just one book. I have to see how they link together. But amazing book. If you haven't read it, do it. Another book that I read this month was One of Us is Next by Karen McManus. It's the sequel to One of Us is Lying. And I read it because I was going through my bookshelf a few weeks back and I found One of Us is Lying, and I was giving it away to a friend. And it's young adult fiction, it's thriller mystery. And I was thinking, I really enjoyed this book. Why did I never continue reading in the series? So I thought, okay, let me just give it a try. So I got One of Us is Next, and the book is also taking place at Bayview High, the high school, just like in the first one. And just like the first one, there's a game that's the students are playing in this book that is very, morally questionable and dangerous. The game is a truth or dare game where students are, nobody knows who's responsible for it, but the person who created the game is sending students messages with that will say, okay, do this, or I will expose a very horrible secret to everybody about you. So as I said, morally questionable, but it doesn't stop there. At some point the game turns deadly when one of the dares leads to one of the students dying. So that's where then the investigation starts, and where we find out, okay, who's responsible for this game? Was it on purpose? What happened? I compare it to the first book, and although I enjoyed One of Us is Next, I have to say that it definitely could not keep up with One of Us is Lying. I think one of the reasons was that in One of Us is Lying, the murder is happening right in the beginning, and right away we have a suspect pool of 3 people, and we follow their lives, how it is to be accused of something, and we don't know who it was. So following that story was very enticing and, I don't know, very suspenseful. In this book, the murder does not happen until, I would say, the latter half, and so it takes a very long time. And even then, it's not like as suspenseful as the other one, in my opinion. What I did like was that a lot of characters appeared from the first one, so if you were interested in their fates and want to find out what happened to them, how their lives look like now, I think it's a great book to read. But I will not continue with the series. I don't know if there's another one out there. I know Karen McManus has written a lot of them, so I suspect there is, but for me this will be it. I enjoyed it, but not amazing. So I think I give it 2.5 out of 5 stars, and that's it for me with the series. The next book I want to show you is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. In this book, we have a very special main character. His name is Christopher, and he's a little boy who is very special. I think he's autistic. He loves numbers, for example, and math. He is a very logical brain. He's fascinated by it. And I, by the way, learned a lot because he talks a lot about mathematical phenomenons and stars, constellations, and things like that. So you will learn a lot. But let's stick to the main character. Christopher also has a problem because he cannot really read human emotions as well. It's tough for him to know what people are feeling, how to react in certain situations. So at the beginning of this book, Christopher finds the neighbor's dog who was murdered, and he was brutally murdered, and there is no question that he was murdered, and Christopher is very sad about it, and so he makes the decision to investigate this crime and to find out who did it. So that's all I knew about the book from reading the back here. And so the book essentially I thought would be a mystery, but more so it's just an account of Christopher's life, and it's a way for us to see how a life like that is like, how he sees the world and how the world sees him. And that is definitely what it was, but also it was not just a mystery. The story did take a turn that I did not expect about halfway through, and it turned more into a sort of family drama. And the book opened my eyes because it was handling topics such as, the disability, how it is like for Christopher. I understand him a lot better now. Like, there were chapters where you could really understand to some degree what is going on in his brain. For us, like a train ride, for example, it seems very normal, but for him it is an overload of everything, of information coming at him, and the way it was described made me understand it very well. The author did a great job. But also the book shows how tough it can be if you have a disabled child, and how tough it is on the parents, and yeah, what it can do to a relationship. So it had a lot more levels than I expected, and I liked it. My criticism is that in the beginning I had a little bit of trouble getting into the book, but after a while that was fine. But the start for me, I don't know, the way it was written, it took for me a little bit to get used to it. And then it was a flow. So a great book. I must say though that I compare it to The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and to me it was not on the same level as The Perks of Being a Wallflower. It was a little lower to me, so I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. A great book, and yeah, I liked it. So the last book I want to show you is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabriel Zevin. It was a phenomenal book. I don't want to talk too much about it because I already made a separate reading vlog video about it. But yeah, a beautiful book that deals with friendship, love, art, video games, and also death. So a trigger warning, if you're triggered by it, it does play a big role here. And we followed our two main characters, Sadie and Sam, and yeah, just witness their friendship over time, and see the ups and downs of this friendship, and through sickness, through death, through success and wealth, everything. And let me tell you, there are really ups and very deep downs, so be prepared for a lot of drama. The book also has taught me a lot about Asian culture and what it's like to be Asian or of Asian descent in modern America. The book deals with modern very important topics, and the author is making a lot of political statements. We have video games in here that play a huge role. So if you're a video game fan, this is definitely for you. But even if you don't worry. This book will be, fantastic regardless. I'm not into video games, and I loved it. My only real criticism was that at the points in time where the relationship between Sadie and Sam is very strained, they don't talk with one another about their emotions, or they have a hard time doing it. And I hate when characters do it, when there's a problem and it could easily be fixed if they would just talk and would tell the other how they feel, but they don't do it. So we had a few instances of that, which drove me nuts. But overall, the writing was just so beautiful. I lined a lot of pages that, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and it is highly recommended by me. All right, so that was everything I wanted to show you. That was my month of March, and I hope you enjoyed. I wish you all the best. Stay safe, stay healthy, and bye-bye.